Howdy, howdy. Caveman here for yet another edition of Nonsense in the Car. And I realize upon watching some of these that it's kind of got some loud background noise. I'm sorry for that. Perhaps one day I'll have the mental capacity to talk to myself while not doing 80 miles an hour on the freeway. So, what do we want to talk about today? I'm going to sound like a broken record with the words, "This is the most important thing I have ever seen or heard." However, I have come across yet another resource that has been, I wouldn't say groundbreaking, but foundation laying in a way that I had not yet understood in his own words. And the preface is, in the last video I talked about Deep State Mapping Project and Dylan Monroe, and I got those pieces of art in the mail, and I'll show some of those on video as well because they're extravagant. They're really, really good. And in fact, I don't even want to say finally, people spend their whole life searching for this. I do feel like I'm starting to have the entire frame of the puzzle, and the puzzle is everything, all curiosities and unknowns of life, so to say, that I feel like I have the edge pieces is kind of a big deal in a non-egotistical way, and the pieces of art that Dylan made provide a lot of that framework, because when we talk about everything, we're talking about all events and ideas that have existed previously, historically, and what's being talked about today. And so much of it revolves around topics that are hush-hush or passed over, considered a conspiracy or not necessary, which could all be summarized as the occult. And the occult literally just means hidden. And so much of the useful, real information is of an occult nature. And Dylan's I've got bites on my arm. Dylan's 6 major pieces of artwork provide a framework because there's all these little words written out. It's like, okay, this seems to encapsulate all things. Now, this is a bazillion trillion piece puzzle, and I am nowhere near having even turned all the other pieces over that go inside, but we're finally operating within a semi-reasonable framework. Okay, so when scrolling through the resources that Dylan used in creating specifically the Cult of Baal map. So that's the one that's going to outline all the different religious and maybe dark occult systems that existed over the last few thousand years. So Baal, aka Satan, Lucifer, Baphomet, etc. And one of the guys he had listened to was a guy named Mark Passio. And I clicked on a YouTube video. I was like, okay, this is interesting. Didn't have time to watch it. Went and listened to one of his episodes where he was actually a guest. And it became apparent almost immediately that this man contains very important knowledge that everyone needs to learn and understand. And it wasn't, as he even says in his video that I'm leading up to, it wasn't that he has new information, because there is nothing new under the sun. It is that he has an effective ability to aggregate it and present it in such a way with such a passion that I had never, or it had been a while since I had felt that from someone in their talking, someone that believes not only so deeply about the truth of the information, but recognizes the veracity of it and the importance of the information, almost regardless of whether or not people make any use of it. So from there, I gleaned that he had a particular presentation on YouTube, and this is what I'm leading up to, called Presentation About Natural Law. And the gentleman's name is Mark Passio, Passio. This presentation is about 9 hours long. He had it maybe in 2012. And I listened to the whole thing on the drive down to Orlando. I was picking up chicken, as one does. And I'll probably talk about more in depth on the presentation itself in another video, so this doesn't go too long, just pique your interest. And by all means, listen to it at a faster speed so that you can, carve it out in about 6 hours. Go to 1.5 or even 1 3/4 speed on the presentation. But look up Natural Law, Mark Passio. It's 9 hours long, so you know you have the right one. And that presentation was, as I prefaced in the beginning, the most important thing I think I have heard yet. Now, I've certainly found some very important books and discovered some very pivotal speakers. Dr. Cruz was one for me earlier. Whereas Dylan's artwork has provided that giant framework to encapsulate all the things, all the little things for us to learn and discover. The presentation on natural law is like the first thing we need to understand before anything else. It is the primary information from which we branch out from there. The premise of natural law, Aquinas, St. Thomas Aquinas is quite famous for his theory on it. But this is also known as God's law, karmic law, consequentialism, a few different names for the same thing. At the core of it is truth. And that is what Mark is so hell-bent on, is the discovery and exposition and the display of truth, and demonstrating how we are living in such the facade is kind of, to put it gently, we are living in a system of slavery worldwide that we do not even recognize. And in order to right that wrong, people need to wake up to the truth. And this has very little to do with politics in the conventional sense. But it was his delivery style that caught me so, not off guard, but kind of stuck in me. If you remember the cartoon and the fable, The Sword and the Stone, when the little kid pulls the sword out, that's what it felt like when listening to his presentation. That is how important the information is regarding not just the fate of humanity, but the fate of truth. Once you realize that truth is, in a way, just another word for God or Trog, then obviously the importance of upholding truth becomes paramount above all else. Anyway, in listening to the presentation, it was as if I pulled out my own sword in the stone, and it kind of takes your breath away, because you realize once you come to the understanding of not just what truth is, but the importance of it and the role you must play, it's like you can't back away from it. And it's kind of been sitting with me for a few days, rolling around in my head how I can help facilitate this. It would kind of be like Neo in the Matrix, and after he takes the red pill and realizes what's going on, to say, the hell with this, I'm out. This laid out the understanding of the red pill in such a way that it was like very heavy. So I highly encourage everyone to go listen to the presentation on natural law. In an upcoming video, I'll go through that and probably kind of chunk that up and discuss it, because I intentionally did not get into it in this video so that we can talk about it later, because there's a lot of parts to it. So I'll leave you with that.